first, concealed carry and open carry. I am an advocate of the Second Amendment. I believe that law-abiding citizens have the right to carry guns. This county only has issued the Sheriff's Department's only issued about 330 concealed carry permits for this whole county. And there's 300,000 people living here. The requirements that the sheriff has, the way that the sheriff interprets concealed carry now, is that the person who wants to carry has to have a very strong reason as to why they want to carry. They've been threatened, they carry large sums of money. I don't feel that, even though the state law says that there has to be good cause, the sheriff or the issuing official gets to interpret what good cause is. To me, wanting to protect yourself, being a law-abiding citizen, is good cause. So if I'm elected sheriff, I project that the number of concealed carry permits is going to go up drastically in this county. So, because of how I interpret that. So to answer that question, the open carry issue is actually a little bit different, because in cities you can't carry a loaded firearm, so you'd have to carry an unloaded firearm. I'm not a proponent of carrying an unloaded firearm, not because for the constitutionality of, just because you're almost inviting problems. So I'm not a proponent of it, although if I wouldn't enforce it, take people's right away to do it. But an unloaded gun is more of a paperweight than it is actually a defensive weapon. So that's my view of open carry. I've been in law enforcement for 36 years, and I don't ever remember a law enforcement official in this state deputizing people. I mean, it's been in the codes forever. That's something it's kind of a standard thing in every state that people of a certain age have to render come to your assistance. And I would certainly utilize that if it were necessary. If we needed more people to enforce law, I would have no problem in deputizing citizens. I don't see a great need for it, under the very special circumstances. I would rather see a greater use of what we would call a reserve program, where we actually train people to meet the same specifications as sworn officers have. It's just they have regular jobs. It's sort of like a ready reserve group for law enforcement. And when I first started in law enforcement in college at Fresno State, part of the program there, if you're a law enforcement major, is you're a reserve with the Sheriff's Department. Okay. And you do actually do everything that regular deputies do, other than you don't get paid. And that is really beneficial. It adds to the number of deputies that are available, but also to the education of the citizens to know about what law enforcement is doing. And that really solves a lot of problems by people knowing, why law enforcement did what they did or didn't do, and seeing, well, hey, that was wrong. What that person did was wrong, and actually knowing that it was right or wrong. So I'm a very big proponent of that. I've never really even studied the topic of constitutional issues. So that's an area where I am uneducated, so to speak.
Do you want me to give you a brief synopsis?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I'm always willing to learn.
A brief synopsis. And so the original intent, at least in my understanding of California from others that I've talked to, is that militias are supposed to be at the disposal of the sheriff should anything ever come to fruition and you need them. So there's your brief history lesson. Feel free to go digging a little further.
I will, yeah, I'll do some research on it, but thank you.
And I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I'm finding there's a lot of things that I thought I knew that I didn't know as well as I thought I did as I go through this campaign, so I've been educated on a lot of topics. I think the Founding Fathers got it right when they wrote the original Constitution. There is a specific mechanism that they put in there for amending the Constitution. And unfortunately, what we have in the last, at least 50 years, is the courts have taken on amending the Constitution by their interpretation of the things that are there, which I think is a misuse of their power. And so we, as I said in my opening statement, we've got this erosion of our rights that has been so gradual that we don't notice it. It's like you're standing there and the riverbank's being gradually eroded, but then pretty soon you're standing on the edge. And I think that's what's finally happened. It's gone on for so long, and now we realize we're standing on the edge of losing our rights, of this country changing dramatically from being a country of independent people who looked for the federal government for protection from outside problems. And it seems like of all the things that we rely on them to do, that's what they've done the least of. I mean, look at our immigration issues. And this is not a racist, I mean, I'm not saying this as a racist comment, but we've got millions of people who have entered this country illegally. And during the Reagan administration, when they said, okay, we're going to crack down, but we're going to give these people that are here now amnesty. Well, look what's happened. So now we just have those that were blanketed in, and 20 million more maybe, depending on who you ask, maybe more than that. So the federal government has failed us in the jobs that they're supposed to do, but now they're infringing on the jobs that they're not supposed to do. And I think it's going to take people waking up, and I think they're finally, people are mad enough now, they're fed up enough to where there's starting to be a groundswell of people saying, hey, we don't want this, we want to go back to being, we want to go back to states' rights and things like that. You know, and you know, with any problem, the smaller the level of organization that addresses it, the better it works out. So if you got a problem in your city, the city needs to address it. If you got a problem in your county, the county needs to address it, not the state, not the federal government. So that's kind of my take on life in general, is that we need to get back to local control.
Because I want to get everyone's response. Because I think that these questions are the ones that a lot of people on the ground want answered, but they're afraid to ask them.
I get, you know, well, I'm not getting emails now, but I was getting about three to four, sometimes 5 emails a day on those types of topics. Concealed carry being, you know, way up there, but a lot of the topics about oath keepers and about the infringement on our local rights, and it's a quiet groundswell of people. It's not a very visible group at this time. You know, you don't hear a lot about it, but when you have an email address and it's from different people all the time, so their word is spreading out, and so you know, I don't know how large it is, but it's larger than everybody.
The silent majority. It's
not really party. Both parties, well, the major parties, they're both doing the same thing. You know, they just have a different slant. It just comes from a different side, but they're both doing the same thing. They're, you know, huge spending of money to the point where we may have already gone past the point where it's resolvable. I mean, you know, the money thing is, you know, when you start talking about trillions, it makes billions sound like they're not nearly as much money.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes it almost sound, oh, it's just a few billion. Well, it's a huge amount of money. And you know, I think the debt's up to like $40,000 a person. And I mean, that's man, woman, and child.
Yeah.
You know, at what point do the country declare bankruptcy and start over? That scares the heck out of me.
So,
I think most officers realize that they are protectors of everybody's rights. You know, not only do we arrest bad guys, but we're also protecting those bad guys' rights.
Yeah.
And sometimes they lose sight of that. I know I certainly have at times, you know, in my law enforcement career. But if you take a step back, you realize, no, I have to protect even that guy that I arrested, I have to protect their rights. And you know, our founding fathers, they would rather have a guilty person get off than an innocent person be convicted. And you know, that's actually a good philosophy. As often as I was mad that somebody got off on a technicality, I certainly realized how important those issues are. I think we had 19 or 20 forums.
Oh my goodness.
And 4 out of the 5 questions at every one were the same question. About every third one we get different questions, but pretty much the same questions at every forum. And so I have to admit, everybody stayed pretty much on their own line. They didn't change, so it was pretty predictable. But yeah, it got to be, you know, sitting there listening to, well, I'm sure they felt the same way about listening to me, but knowing what they were going to say, and you're just kind of biding your time because you know what that person's going to say. And of course, the people listening hadn't heard it before.
Yes.
So it was interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you again.
Nice meeting you. Nice meeting you. Thank you very much.
Take care.
You're a good guy. Bye-bye. We love our oath keepers.
That's
Woo-hoo.
right.
Thank you.
God bless you.